the raft of issues that are worrying CEOs and top executives just gets ever longer. Of course, you've got the labour problems and the strikes taking place in the United States. You've also got a potential government shutdown in just over a week waiting in the wings in the United States, and a year of destructive climate disasters, which present challenges, especially as we head towards COP28. And then add to that the war in Ukraine, which does look like it will rumble into, God help us, into a second winter. BCG's Global Chair, Rich Lesser's with me in New York. First of all, thank you, sir, for standing by. Obviously, we wanted to hear the Prime Minister and the President, but I'm grateful that you were able to wait in turn. The issue, I just want to start with this bit, this idea, this uncertainty that exists. We got through last winter with all its problems in Europe of gas and oil, and this year should be better on the reliance. But there's no doubt the level of uncertainty because of geopolitics is vast.
Yes. Well, first, it's a pleasure to be with you, Richard. And but you're completely right. We're living in a world of very high uncertainty, and it puts a real premium on resilience. Resilience in energy systems, resilience economically, resilience on many dimensions. And I think when we talk about climate, you get to the same questions. Right now, we have to do so much work on adaptation and resilience for a changing planet. So I think you're completely right about the uncertainties and how challenging that makes it for everyone, including business leaders.
Right. But do you see this uptick, this quite dramatic uptick, very specific in labour disputes, as emblematic of something wider? These are the touchstones, if you will. I mean, both of them are using different strategies, but they do suggest that something is not right.
Well, I think we've gone through a very disrupted period in this country. The COVID shutdowns, a bout of inflation, an enormous amount of uncertainty, not just at the macro level, but in people's lives. Mm-hmm. And I think that plays through on how people are feeling. And we're seeing that in a number of ways, probably including the labor situation that we're feeling right now. And I do think that, we have seen us moving in the direction of a quote unquote soft landing economically. But as I recently wrote to CEOs, soft landings can come with hard challenges. And I think this situation in labor is one of them right now.
And to your point, the soft landing on the macro level can be very hard to some of them who are on the harder end of it, who've lost a job or haven't got a contract or have seen their benefits. And that's now the concern. The big issue seems to be, the bosses did well. It's our turn now. Is that fair?
I don't know if it's fair, but it certainly feels a big part of the narrative right now. And look, how we get beyond all of the uncertainty, stresses, division, right, and anger we've been feeling is no small challenge for this country. And it's not just in the US, it's in many places around the world that these tensions have built. And then you compound it, we've been at the UN and mm-hmm. in so many meetings on climate and sustainability. I mean, those challenges don't go away, and they may not feel as immediate, but they are certainly fundamental. We have to tackle those while we handle these short-term pressures that you're so accurately describing.
So the one thing on climate that came out, I think, listening from the UNGA this week and looking ahead to COP in December, it's in the detail. Everybody can stand at that podium in the General Assembly and pontificate in generalities about the significance. But what you know is that it's about targets, it's about the funding for this, and if there's no shortage of funding, it's about for the monitoring of success to prevent greenwashing.
So if I were to characterize this week, we led 30 sessions. We're involved in over 100. So we've been really deep into it. The three words that for me capture this week are conviction, collaboration, and caution. Conviction, I mean, the number of people that come now, the intensity of the discussions about how to drive real action, whether it's in food and agriculture or heavy industry or in, energy systems and so forth. I mean, it's deep. There's a big recognition that, yes, you need to make your own commitments, but the way to make progress is when we collaborate together across value chains between the public and private sector. But also, as you correctly put it, it's about caution. This is really hard as people get into it. People that signed up for targets are realizing in many cases they're difficult. They worry about being attacked from the far left and the far right. And so I do think that while people have enormous conviction and there is much more of a sense of collaboration, there's also a tempered caution about just how hard this is going to be in the years ahead.
One final question occurs to me. You've looked at this in so much detail, but on climate change, do you think which works better, the carrot or the stick?
I think we need some of both. I think when it comes to investing in new technologies or helping consumers like to move to electric vehicles, we absolutely need carrots of the kind that's in IRA. But I think to help decarbonize value chains like in steel or cement or all the things that we need to do in our economy, it would help if we could mobilize more towards some form, doesn't have to be a tax, but some form of a price on carbon and some regulatory elements that are not so burdensome, but encourage people to take the right actions. And so I think you see Europe taking much more of a stick approach. You see the US taking much more of a carrot approach. There's probably learnings from both that would help us push things forward.
Have an excellent weekend, sir. I'm grateful for your time. Thank you.